أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Surah 79,
النازعات.
The Soul Pluckers, Meccan period. Title. This surah's title is taken from its opening word. Period of revelation. According to Abdullah ibn Abbas, this chapter was revealed after
Surah An-Naba.
It appears from its subject matter that it must have been revealed during the very early days of the Meccan period. Subject matter and themes. Central to the surah is an affirmation of the last day and life after death. Furthermore, it contains warnings against rejection of Allah's messenger. The surah opens by invoking the angels. They're introduced as those who pluck out the souls at the time of death, who speedily obey Allah's commands and who carry out their Lord's orders in managing the affairs of the universe. With reference to these angels, it is asserted that the last day is inevitable. So is life after death, which is bound to happen. The same angels who seize the souls in this world will restore the souls for the next life. The same angels who presently enforce Allah's commands in running the affairs of the universe will destroy, by Allah's leave, the present order. The old will give way to the new. What people regard as impossible is not at all hard for Allah. He does not take to make any elaborate preparation to accomplish anything. Only a single tremor will destroy the present order. In the next stage, all human beings will find themselves restored to life in the hereafter. Those who deny it presently will tremble with fear as they see with their own eyes what they used to dismiss as inconceivable. This affirmation is followed by a brief account of the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, and Pharaoh, with a view to reminding people that Pharaoh met with a horrible end as punishment for his rejection of the Prophet, of divine guidance, and for his deception in trying to defeat the Prophet's mission. Hence, the unbelievers should better draw a lesson from all this. Otherwise, they are doomed for the same terrible end. Verses 27 to 33 adduce arguments for the day of judgment and life after death. The unbelievers are asked as to which of the two is a more difficult task: resurrecting them or creating this vast universe with its innumerable planets, stars, and celestial bodies. Since Allah did not find it at all hard to create them in the first place, it will be quite easy for Him to resurrect them. This weighty and incontrovertible proof regarding the hereafter is followed by the enumeration of the bounties provided for human and animal life on earth. Each object testifies that it has been brought into being for a particular purpose. Man should exercise his reason, whether it is logical or not, to hold himself responsible for his own conduct, for his powers, and for discharging his duties. It is not a totally absurd proposition that man not be called to account for his good or bad deeds. Should he not be asked how he used his faculties and how he performed his duties? Or should man be allowed to get away with anything scot-free? Verses 34 to 41 relate how man will be recompensed on the day of judgment. His ultimate and eternal abode will be adjudged in the light of his servitude to Allah. It will be determined whether he transgressed in rebelling against Allah and in taking worldly pleasures as his sole objective. It will be ascertained as to who feared his Lord and refrained from gratifying his base self. All this helps one answer the above questions about the need for the reckoning, provided one honestly studies the issue, free from bigotry. For reason, justice, and morality demand that man, who is invested with power and authority, should eventually be adjudged and be rewarded or punished. In the surah's last section, the unbelieving Meccans' query about the exact time of the Day of Judgment is addressed. Indeed, they put this question to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, repeatedly. Here, they are told that Allah alone knows when it will be. The Prophet's assignment consists only in warning them about the inevitable last day. They are free to mend their ways out of the fear of reckoning or disregard it altogether, while giving in to their base desires. On the appointed day, those immersed in worldliness will feel that they had tarried in the world only for a brief time. Only then will they realize how they had ruined their prospects in the hereafter as a result of their preference for this short, ephemeral, worldly life.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate.
والنازعات غرقا.
By those angels that pluck out the soul from depths.
والناشطات نشطا.
And gently take it away.
والسابحات سبحا.
And by those that speedily glide along the cosmos.
السابقات سبقا.
And vie with the others in carrying out their Lord's behests.
المدبرات أمرا.
And then manage the affairs of the universe according to their Lord's commands. And then manage the affairs of the universe. The beings with these 5 distinctive features are invoked. It is clear from later verses that the oath is taken in order to assert that the last day is imminent and that the dead will be raised. There is no definite clue about the identity of these beings. However, most of the companions and successors and the majority of Quranic scholars hold the view that the allusion is to angels. In the opinion of Abdullah ibn Masud, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Masruq, Sayyid ibn Jubair, Abu Saleh, Abu al-Doha, and Sudi, those who pluck out the soul from its depths and gently take it away at man's death, and those who speedily glide along the cosmos are angels. The same view is shared by Ali ibn Masud, Mujahid, Sayyid ibn Jubair, and Abu Saleh, whereby the angels are so swift in enforcing Allah's commands, it is as if they are gliding. Ali, Mujahid, Masruq, Abu Saleh, and Hassan Basri likewise take those vying with others in the sense of angels. What is meant by their vying is that they rush to implement the Lord's each and every command. Similarly, it is the angels who manage the affairs. This view is endorsed by Ali, Mujahid, Ata, Abu Saleh, Hassan Basri, Qatada, Rabi ibn Anas, and Sudi. In other words, angels are the workforce in charge of the universe's affairs, but in accordance with their Lord's commands. Although no hadith bears out these interpretations, that these were the views of leading companions and their disciples, suggests that they were based on the Prophet's own observation. They would have deduced this meaning from no other source than the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself. Now we are faced with a question as to why the oath refers to angels in a discussion about the last day and life after death. Angels, after all, are invisible and beyond man's perception. So why and how should they serve as witnesses in this context? Our answer is as follows. The Arabs did not deny altogether the existence of angels. They recognized that angels seize man's soul upon his death. Likewise, they believed that angels are exceptionally swift beings who can move from the heavens to the earth in no time at all. Similarly, they took angels as God's obedient servants who did speedily all that God asked them to do. They managed the affairs of the universe in accordance with God's commands, never using their own discretion. Yet, out of ignorance, these unbelieving Meccans regarded the angels as God's daughters, and this to the point of worshipping them as well. However, they did not take them as the supreme authority. Accordingly, these distinctive features of the angels are recounted in this verse so as to stress these points. The angels who seize their souls may restore the same. They who presently oversee the workings of the universe, according to God's commands, may destroy it at His bidding. They will not and cannot disobey God even in the slightest.
يوم ترجف الراجفة.
The day when the quaking will cause a violent convulsion.
تتبعها الرادفة.
And will be followed by another quaking. The first quaking will destroy the earth and all that is on it. In the wake of the second quake, however, all the dead will rise. The same truth is stated elsewhere in the Quran thus: "And the trumpet shall be blown, and all who are in the heavens and the earth shall fall down dead, save those whom Allah wills. Then the trumpet shall be blown again, and lo, all of them will be standing and looking on." Al-Zumar 39:68.
قلوب يومئذ واجفة.
On that day, some hearts shall tremble with fright. On that day, some hearts shall tremble with fright. That some hearts shall tremble with fright on that day portrays the condition of the unbelievers, wicked ones, and hypocrites on the last day. True believers and the pious will not face any fear. Rather, the hour of the great terror shall not grieve them, and the angels shall receive them, saying, "This is your day, which you had been promised." Al-Anbiya 21:103.
أبصارها خاشعة
And their eyes shall be downcast with dread.
يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة
They say, shall we indeed be restored to life?
أإذا كنا عظاما نخرة
Even after we have been reduced to bones, hollow and rotten.
قالوا تلك إذا كرة خاسرة
They say, that will then be a return with a great loss. They say, that will then be a return with a great loss. They mockingly talk about their resurrection, saying that it will be a return with great loss.
فإنما هي زجرة واحدة
Surely, they will need no more than a single stern blast.
فإذا هم بالساهرة
And lo, they will all be in the open plain. And lo, they will all be in the open plain. They sneeringly dismiss the resurrection, viewing it as impossible. However, it is quite easy for Allah to accomplish resurrection. He does not even need to make any elaborate preparations for it. His single gesture will bring all the dead back to life, no matter where they lie buried. Suddenly, the dead will find themselves alive again on planet Earth. Whether they consider their return as a great loss or try to avoid it, they are bound to be resurrected. Neither their rejection nor their mockery can avert this eventuality.
هل أتاك حديث موسى
Has Moses' story reached you? Has Moses' story reached you? The unbelieving Meccans' mockery and rejection of the last day and the hereafter signified their crying lies to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, their nefarious moves aimed at defeating the Prophet's mission. So, before adducing further arguments for the hereafter, these unbelievers are apprised of the story of the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, and Pharaoh. This to make them realize the terrible consequences of opposing the Messenger of God and his mission.
إذ ناداه ربه بالواد المقدس طوى
When his Lord called him in a sacred valley of Tuwa. When his Lord called him in a sacred valley of Tuwa. Quranic commentators generally take this to be the sacred valley of Tuwa. However, some offer other interpretations as well. For some, it was sanctified twice. A, for the first time when Allah spoke to the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, there, and B, for the second time when the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, took the children of Israel there after their liberation from Egypt. Some scholars interpret the word Tuwa in its literal sense of having spent part of the night there.
اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى
And directed him, go to Pharaoh, he has rebelled.
فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى
And say to him, are you willing to be purified?
وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى
That I may direct you to your Lord, and then you hold him in awe. That I may direct you to your Lord, and then you hold him in awe. The following points should be grasped well. A. The Quran recounts at several places the dialogue between Allah and the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, as the latter was appointed to the office of messenger. In some instances, this account appears in its detailed and in others in brief forms. In this passage, only its salient points are recounted. Its details, nonetheless, are found in Taha 20:9-48, Al-Shu'ara 26:10-17, Al-Naml 27:7-12, and Al-Qasas 28:29-35. B. Pharaoh's rebellion consisted in his refusal to serve Allah and his revolt against his creator. His revolt was betrayed by a proclamation he made in an assembly of his subjects. He gathered his people and declared, "I am the supreme Lord of you all." Verses 23 to 24 of Al-Naziat. As to his oppression of his people, he divided them into several classes and sections and exploited the poor and the weak. He enslaved them, as is stated in Al-Qasas 28:4 and Al-Zukhruf 43:54. C. The Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, was given the directive, "Speak to him gently, perhaps he may take heed or fear Allah." Taha 20:44. This passage sets the model guidelines for preachers on how to convey the truth to sinners. Other such directives feature in Taha 20:49-52, Al-Shu'ara 26:23-28, and Al-Qasas 28:37. These passages instruct how the truth should be preached. D. The Prophet Moses' only mission, peace be upon him, was not the liberation of the children of Israel from Pharaoh's shackles, as is held by some scholars. Rather, his primary goal was to guide Pharaoh and his people to the truth. His other goal, nonetheless, was that if Pharaoh refused to follow the straight way, the believing children of Israel should be freed from his servitude and taken out of Egypt. The passage under discussion makes no reference to the children of Israel's freedom. Rather, the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, is asked only to invite Pharaoh to the truth. In other Quranic passages, mention is made of both his missions, of preaching faith and of demanding the children of Israel's release. See, for example, Al-Araf 7:104-105, Taha 20:47-52, Al-Shu'ara 26:16-17, and 23-28. For further details, also see Towards Understanding the Quran, Volume 4, Yunus 10, Note 74, paragraphs 54-55. E. To attain purification in this context signifies embracing sound beliefs and performing good deeds. In sum, it stands for acceptance of Islam. According to Ibn Zayd, the word tazakki in Quranic parlance means one's conversion to Islam. He cites in support of his contention the following Quranic verses: Taha 20:76, Abasa 80:3 and 7. F. The Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, was asked by Allah to direct Pharaoh to the Lord so that he may hold him in awe. Once Pharaoh recognized Allah as his Lord and he himself as his servant, he would naturally fear him. Such God consciousness molds one's outlook on life and enables one to follow the straight way. Without gnosis or fear of Allah, one cannot achieve purity.
فأراه الآية الكبرى.
Then Moses, peace be upon him, went to Pharaoh and showed him the great sign. Then Moses, peace be upon him, went to Pharaoh and showed him the great sign. The great sign consisted in his staff becoming a serpent, a point made at several places in the Quran. It was indeed a clinching piece of evidence whereby an ordinary lifeless staff turned suddenly into a serpent, with people watching the spectacle in sheer and utter amazement. Moreover, it swallowed up all that was fabricated by Pharaoh's magicians. Yet, when the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, picked it up, it was once again restored to its original function as a staff. This great miracle conclusively established that it was Allah, the Lord of the universe, who had sent down the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him.
فكذب وعصى.
But he denied it as false and disobeyed.
ثم أدبر يسعى.
And then he turned back to have recourse to his craftiness. It is stated elsewhere in the Quran that Pharaoh had summoned magicians from all parts of Egypt and asked them to publicly show how their staff and ropes turned into serpents. This would convince the people that Moses, peace be upon him, was not a messenger, but a mere magician, as other magicians could accomplish the same. However, the tables were turned on Pharaoh as his own magicians conceded defeat, proclaiming that what Moses presented was a genuine miracle, not some magical illusion.
فحشر فنادى
And gathered his people and declared,
فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى
I am the supreme Lord of you all. I am the supreme Lord of you all. Pharaoh's claim recurs in the Quran. For example, he is on record as issuing this threat to the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him. If you, Moses, take any god other than me, I will certainly make you one of those who are rotting in prison. Al-Shu'ara 26:29. While addressing his courtiers, he told them, O nobles, I do not know that you have any god beside myself. Al-Qasas 28:38. Notwithstanding making such tall claims, Pharaoh knew well that he was not the creator of the universe, nor was he a denier of God's existence or a claimant to divinity. He nonetheless looked upon himself as a god. The Quran itself testifies that he used to worship other gods. His courtiers are found curtly telling him, the elders of Pharaoh's nation said, Will you leave alone Moses and his people to spread mischief in the land and forsake you and your gods? Al-Araf 7:127. Likewise, the Quran reproduces Pharaoh's remark, Why were bracelets of gold not bestowed upon him, Moses? Why did a retinue of angels not accompany him as attendants? Al-Zukhruf 43:53. In sum, he considered himself as a supreme authority in the political domain. In speaking of himself as a God and supreme Lord, he asserted his unquestionable sovereignty. He was not willing to share political authority with anyone in his kingdom. This explains why he refused to accept divine guidance, for this would have implied his servitude to a superior power. For further discussions on the issue, see Towards Understanding the Quran, Volume 3, Al-Araf 7, Note 85, page 64. Volume 5, Taha 20, Note 21, paragraphs 192 to 193. Volume 7, Al-Shu'ara 26, Notes 24 and 26, pages 62 and 63. Al-Qasas 28, Notes 52 to 53, pages 220 to 222. And Al-Zukhruf 43, Note 49.
فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى
Thereupon Allah seized him for the chastisement of the world to come as well as of the present.
إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى
Surely there is a great lesson in it for whoever would fear Allah. Surely there is a great lesson in it for whoever would fear Allah. One should draw a lesson from the miserable consequences Pharaoh faced by virtue of his rejection.
أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها
Is it harder to create you or the heaven? But Allah built it. Is it harder to create you? This marks the beginning of the discourse on the rationale and plausibility of the last day and life after death. Or the heaven. The reference here is to mankind's resurrection. Heaven in this verse stands for the whole celestial system, stars, planets, solar systems, and galaxies. The unbelievers regard resurrection as impossible. They contend as to how the dead can be brought back to life once their bones have disintegrated. Do they ever reflect how this vast universe was created in the first place? Is its creation harder or resurrection of the dead? Since it was not hard for Allah to create the universe and the heaven, He can easily recreate it. This argument for life after death recurs in the Quran. Has He who created the heavens and the earth no power to create the likes of them? He is the superb Creator. Yasin 36:81. Surely the creation of the heavens and the earth is a greater act than the creation of human beings, but most people do not know. Al-Mu'min 40:57.
رفع سمكها فسواها
And raised its vault high and proportioned it.
وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها
And covered its night with darkness, and brought forth from it its day. And covered its night with darkness, and brought forth from it its day. Both night and day are mentioned in the context of the sky, for as the sun sets on the sky, night falls. Likewise, the rising of the sun on the horizon marks dawn. That night covers signifies that its darkness envelops the earth.
وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا
And thereafter spread out the earth. And thereafter spread out the earth. And thereafter spread out the earth does not necessarily mean that it happened at a later stage than the sky's creation. Rather, it states two simultaneous actions. The two are mentioned in succession, not in chronological order, but with a view to drawing attention to one and then the other. Take this Quranic statement as illustrative. The coarse-grained and above all mean and ignoble. Al-Qalam 68:13. This does not relate that the first characteristic was later followed by others. What is meant is that the person in question has all these features. Another instance in point is, it is freeing someone's neck from slavery, and then, besides this, he be one of those who believed. Al-Balad 90:13 and 17. Once again, this does not mean that one should first perform some good deeds and then embrace faith. Essentially, these verses portray a believer who, apart from being blessed with faith, does many good deeds. It is also worth clarifying that at some places the Quran speaks first of the creation of the sky and in others of the earth. There is no internal contradiction. It is not the Quran's concern to state which of the two was created first, the earth or the sky. Rather, in the context of Allah's creative wonders, creation of the sky is mentioned first. Whenever the context demands that man's attention be drawn to the bounties he receives from the earth, the creation of the earth takes precedence. For further details, see Ha Mim Al-Sajda 41, notes 13 to 14.
أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها
And brought out of it its water and its pasture. And brought out of it its water and its pasture. Pasture is not to be taken in its narrow, specific sense of fodder for cattle. Rather, it embraces the whole range of plant life which is used by both men and animals. In Surah Yusuf, the same expression is used with reference to the young Joseph, when his elder brothers sought their father's permission to take Joseph, peace be upon him, with them so that he may move about and pluck and eat fruits in the forest. Yusuf 12:12.
وَالْجِبَالَ أَرْسَاهَا
And firmly fixed in it mountains.
مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ
All this as provision for you and your cattle. All this as provision for you and your cattle. These verses affirm the reality of the last day and life after death with the help of two arguments. As Allah is all-powerful, it is not hard for Him to bring about these. He has created a vast universe with a remarkable balance and interconnection. The earth, once again created by Him, abounds in an amazing variety of resources. Furthermore, Allah's perfect wisdom, of which undeniable manifestations are scattered around us, makes it clear that there is nothing vain or without purpose in the universe. Instead, there is perfect balance and coordination amid the numerous stars, planets, and galaxies. All this testifies that it is not some haphazard show. Rather, it represents an elaborate and purposive scheme of things. The constant alternation of day and night demonstrates that the earth has been created as part of a wise plan. In most regions on earth, the cycle of day and night is completed in an equal measure within 24 hours. Yet there are some regions which have unusually long nights or days. Life in such regions is relatively more difficult. Significantly enough, there is less population there as well. Such remote regions in which day and night last for 6 months each are the least habitable. This wide discrepancy in the duration of day and night on the same planet, Earth, is devised by Allah in order to stress the truth that the regular alternation of day and night is not a chance happening. Rather, it has been put in place wisely and to make life easy. Likewise, the earth has been spread out like a bed. It has been provided with water that sustains human, plant, and animal life. Mountains have been fixed on it once again to provide ample means for human and animal life. The creation of the universe is, thus, not some sport. Natural phenomena are not chance happenings. Each and every object in the universe has been prudently placed by the all-wise, all-knowing Lord. It is for every thinking person to reflect upon whether the hereafter is the next logical step or not. Those who reject the doctrine of the hereafter in the face of these signs tend to dismiss man's existence as something pointless, for they observe firsthand the wisdom and purpose underlying each and every object of the universe. It is a totally untenable proposition that man cannot be called to account after his death. As man is invested with so many faculties, powers, and authorities, he must be held accountable for his own conduct. This is a simple, logical position, supported by the dictates of common sense and justice.
فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى
But when the great calamity will come about, the last day is branded as the great calamity, for it will afflict everyone. The expression thus befits the enormity of the occasion.
يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى
On the day when man will recall all his strivings, on the day of reckoning, when man will be faced with the tidings he has been told of, he will be obliged to recall his record of deeds. Even in this world, when one feels that death is approaching, the main events of one's life flash before one's eyes.
وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى
And hell will be brought in sight for anyone to see.
فأما من طغى
Then he who transgressed
وآثر الحياة الدنيا
and preferred the life of this world,
فإن الجحيم هي المأوى
most surely his abode shall be hell.
وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى
But he who feared to stand before his Lord and restrained himself from evil desires,
فإن الجنة هي المأوى
most surely his abode shall be paradise. This succinctly lays down the criteria that will be applied on the Day of Judgment. One may revolt against Allah, transgressing His bounds as His servant, and be engrossed wholly in worldly pleasures, even if procured lawfully. The other option is that of piety, leading life with God consciousness and an acute sense of accountability. A pious person refrains from base desires and illegitimate gains out of the fear of Allah. Every human being will be adjudged on the basis of his outlook on life. Rebels will be hurled into hell forever, whereas the pious will enjoy the eternal abode of paradise.
يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها
They ask you about the hour. When will it be? The Meccan unbelievers often posed this question to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, but not because they were sincere about finding out about the inevitable last day. On the contrary, they did so in order to scoff at the concept of the hereafter. For details, see Al-Mulk 67, note 35.
فيما أنت من ذكراها
What concern do you have to speak about that?
إلى ربك منتهاها
Its knowledge rests with your Lord.
إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها
You are only a warner to him who has a fear of it. You are only a warner to him who has a fear of it. This point is addressed in note 36 of Surah Al-Mulk. The Prophet's warning will benefit only those who have a fear of the Day of Judgment.
كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها.
On the day they see it, they will feel as though they had stayed in the grave no more than one evening or one morning. On the day they see it, they will feel as though they had stayed in the grave no more than one evening or one morning. For an elucidation of this point, see Towards Understanding the Quran, Volume 4, Yunus 10, Note 53, page 40. Volume 5, Bani Israel 17, Note 56, page 50. Taha 20, Note 80, pages 224 to 225. Volume 6, Al-Mu'minun 23, Note 101, page 128. Volume 8, Al-Rum 30, Notes 81 to 82, page 115. Volume 9, Yasin 36, Note 48, pages 266 and 267. And Al-Ahqaf 46, Note 35.